According to our next guest, winter entertaining can be a lot easier than you think. Joining us now, author of the Hampton Weekends, Easy Menus for Casual Entertaining All Year Round, is Ellen Wright. Thanks so much for joining us on America's Forum.
It's my pleasure.
So what inspired you to do this cookbook?
Well, this is a book that I wanted to actually help people who want to cook and they're terrified. And most people are afraid of baking and afraid of things going wrong.
Yeah,
and
my husband's included in that.
Yeah, a lot of people.
He's not allowed in the kitchen.
Well,
for good reason.
Well played, sir.
But you can help us relax.
Well,
there's a way to ease into it.
There's a way to ease into it, and part of it has to do with sort of an attitude of trying new things, not being worried. And on the side of these cookbooks, these recipes, this is the fourth cookbook that I've written, there are tips of how to get out of trouble if you get into trouble, or what's the most difficult part of the recipe and what's to avoid. And so it's easy once somebody's like Jiminy Cricket sitting on your shoulder saying, don't worry, you can do it, and try it, and don't worry, because the worst thing that could happen is, like, let's say you make an apple pie and it falls apart. Spoon it out and put it into beautiful wine glasses, a little whipped cream on the top.
I like that solution.
Right? And it becomes a cobbler. So there are ways of getting around things.
All right, so don't give up. But another thing that folks can find when they have a lot of family members over this time of year for either Thanksgiving or Christmas, you got a lot of different dietary constraints. And one of the things, Ellen, that you focus on are folks who have lactose intolerance. And how can you, if you're making Christmas dinner for somebody, you have a guest in town who has a condition like lactose intolerance, how can you help them feel welcome in the whole around the table?
Well, it's very easy if you know that somebody is lactose intolerant ahead of time, that you can have some substitutes. So they can also say no thank you to the ice cream. But in the book, there are some lactose tips, which are substitutes for various...
Because you yourself are lactose intolerant.
I am.
Right.
And I didn't know it for something like 38 years.
Isn't like 80% of the population lactose intolerant and doesn't realize it? I thought I read that somewhere.
I think there's a big population that is and don't know it, and they don't know what it is. They don't know why they don't feel good or why they're sick all the time. I mean, I didn't know for years and years.
But there's so many alternatives out there now.
There's so many alternatives. There's lactate milk, there's lactate cottage cheese, there's a lot of lactate things that are without lactose so that you can use them. And in the book, on the side, under the tips, are some of those substitutes.
So you don't have to leave anyone out.
No, and as you have entertained folks, you've entertained some pretty big names.
Tom Brokaw, being one, who says you're the best cook ever, I believe.
Well, he's a very appreciative audience. I met Tom when he was coming to New York to do the Today Show in 1976, and I invited them for dinner. And I guess people don't invite people for dinner, especially like them or somebody that's a famous cook. You don't. I always invited everybody to dinner, and I felt like if you had a small dinner and you didn't, try to put them on stage, that was a good thing to do.
And it's intimate. And
it's intimate, and people appreciate that.
Well, you've also cooked for diplomats and religious figures, and you've written 4 cookbooks. What are some of your favorite dishes? Anything that...
Well, it's interesting. In Washington, when my husband worked for Reagan, he was in the budget department, number 2 and then number 1. We were there for 8 years, and we invited Secretary of Commerce and the ambassador from Japan to come to dinner to work on a deal, an auto deal between Japan and the United States.
Ellen, I'm sorry we're running out of time. I just looked at the clock. No, my fault for asking you that question, because we really want to hear the story.
It's a great story.
There's a website, though, that we can go to for more information about the cookbook, right?
Yeah,
you want to say that real quick?
Well, the website, yes, because all the proceeds go to the prosthetic fund at the Hospital for Special Surgery. So if you do hss.edu, you can look up the funds and you can read all about the funds.
Thank you so much for joining us on America's Forum. We'll be right back.